So we're here in the backyard now, and although there is one valve that goes to the sprinklers for this back lawn, I've just installed these two raised beds, and we've got these citrus trees and other fruit trees, and I want everything to be on automatic irrigation. So what I could do is dig a trench all the way around the house, run a couple more PVC lines, add a couple more valves out front, and get everything back to here. Or I could do a more simple solution and tie in to this one garden spigot right here with a timer that goes right here. And so I'm going to do that. That's going to irrigate not only the raised beds, but also the fruit trees on separate timers. And it's a real simple solution. So the simplest way to incorporate automatic irrigation into your garden is to use one of these battery powered controllers. Now, because it's battery powered, I don't have to run a power supply out here. It hooks up right to this hose spigot, so I don't have to run a water supply. I literally just hook it up right here, put some batteries in it, and it's good to go. Now, I picked this one up at Green Acres. I like it because it's got two valves in the one controller, so I can run a line to my raised beds and I can run another line to my trees. So all I did here was I put a gated Y onto this hose spigot so that when I hook this up here, I still have an option to put my garden hose on the other side. All right, so this thing was super easy to set up. This is the battery powered irrigation controller with two valves. One of the valves goes to this flex tubing that goes out to the trees, and then the other valve goes to this PVC pipe that'll go underneath the deck, and it comes out on the other side at the raised beds. So I'm not working with a lot of PVC pipe for this project, but one line that I am running is this 3/4 inch line going underneath the deck to the raised garden beds. If it was in a different area, I'd want to dig a trench and bury it, because PVC pipe shouldn't be exposed to sunlight, because that'll really break it down, and over time it'll eventually crack. I'm going to be cutting it with these pipe cutters. You can also use a saw, but these pipe cutters are really simple. They just clamp down, cut through, and it makes a nice clean cut. If you're using a saw, you're going to really want to clean up those edges before you attach them with your next part. Now, to attach these together, I'm using two products. The first is this purple primer. I want to put it on both pieces, so the PVC pipe and the fitting. And then while it's still wet, I'm going to put on this blue PVC glue. So that's also going to go on both sides. They're going to be attached. It's a good idea to wear gloves when you're working with this stuff. You'll notice that today I'm not wearing gloves. So you just twist a little bit to make sure that the glue gets all over those pieces, and then hold it in place for about 10 seconds, and it should be good to go. So here's where the PVC pipe comes out on the other side of the deck, and it goes into these two T's. Each T goes into this blue lock flex tubing that runs up this pipe to the top of the bed. Then at the top, there's another blue lock elbow that runs into this gated Y, and from the gated Y, it connects to soaker hose. So I have it connected at both ends of the soaker hose so that it gets equal irrigation on this side of the bed and on that side of the bed. And I just have the soaker hose kind of laid out to get really good coverage. So this soaker hose, I can just leave this on and irrigate about once or twice a week, and it gets nice deep irrigation saturating all of the soil, and that really encourages your roots to get everywhere in that bed rather than delivering water just to each individual plant. So here's another look at the whole assembly. It comes in from the supply into this T, up into a blue lock elbow, up this line into another elbow, a couple of adapters to get it to fit to this gated Y, and this will just mount right there. This blue lock flex tubing is awesome. You just use your pruning shears to cut it to whatever length you need, and then the fittings push right on and they lock into place. But if you ever need to remove them, you just pull back on these tabs and they slide right off. I love this stuff. Growing vegetables and herbs in containers is great, and as you know by now, I especially love growing in rain gutter planters like these. But one of the biggest challenges with growing in containers is that you use really well-drained potting soil that requires you to water them very frequently, especially shallow containers like these rain gutters. So in order to make it more efficient and not having to come out here every couple of days to water them manually, I've incorporated these in our automatic irrigation system. So all I did was I ran a 3/4 inch line of flex tubing up to the top, and then from there I connected this 1/4 inch drip tubing. Now this drip tubing has emitters throughout the hose about every 6 inches. So once I tied it in here, I just strung it along the top of this rain gutter down to the next one, and it zigzags all the way through. So this will be on the same timer as these raised beds, and they're going to be irrigated automatically without having to come out here and water them manually. For the irrigation for these fruit trees, I've run this 3/4 inch line of flex tubing out to the trees. Then I'm going to attach this gated Y to the end of it, and from there I'll run this 50-foot section of soaker hose out and around all of the trees. That way I can irrigate them very infrequently, but leave it on for a long period of time, so I saturate the soil really well all the way out to the edge of the canopy, and I'll probably only end up watering these things about once a month in the summer. All right, so here's the flex tubing. It goes into this gated Y. Both valves are open, and this soaker hose makes a big loop and comes back to this end. That circular flow allows it to get equal irrigation all the way down and back. So you can see I pulled back the mulch a little bit. I've staked this line in, and now I'll just cover it back up with mulch. My ultimate goal for this front lawn is to either dramatically reduce its size or eliminate it completely and replace it with drought-tolerant plants. But in the meantime, I want to be sure I'm irrigating it as efficiently as possible. So that means replacing the current spray nozzles with more modern, efficient rotary pop-ups. So these are the nozzles that are in place right now. These are just standard pop-up spray nozzles. And although they achieve the goal of irrigating the lawn, they're just not very efficient. Because they put out this fine mist, it's easily evaporated in heat, it's easily blown off of its pattern with any wind, and it puts out a lot more water than you really need, especially with clay soils like we have here. So it ends up running off the lawn into the driveway. So what I'm doing is I'm replacing it with these more efficient nozzles. These are also a pop-up nozzle, but they're a pop-up rotary nozzle, and they're made by Hunter and Rainbird. You can get them all at Green Acres. Now all I had to do was unscrew the old spray nozzles and screw on this new nozzle. So as you can see, it puts out these individual streams. And in doing that, it gets the water exactly where it needs to go, so it's not as affected by wind. It's not creating a fine mist that will evaporate very easily. And it's actually distributing the water at a slower rate, so it has more time to sink into the lawn. So you end up leaving your sprinklers on a little bit longer, but you don't have the issue of it putting out so much water that it runs off the lawn onto the sidewalk and down the driveway. So these are the nozzles that I'm using. These are made by Hunter and Rainbird, and it's just a pop-up rotary nozzle. The good news is that if you already have the old-fashioned spray nozzles in place, you can usually just pop those up, unscrew the old nozzle, and then screw this one right back in its place, adjust it, and you're good to go. And these come in all different patterns and distances, and they're all adjustable, so you can do 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 360 degrees. There's actually a lot more options in trajectory for these than traditional spray nozzles or even other rotary nozzles. Or if you're starting from a new system or your old ones just won't adapt to that, you can just buy the entire unit or any standard pop-up and then add it on top. I'm not going to cover everything you need to know to design and install an entire sprinkler system for your lawn, but whether you are doing that and starting from scratch or just upgrading your system, one important consideration for your coverage is choosing the right nozzle location and the right nozzles so that this nozzle reaches all the way to the next one and that one reaches to the one beyond it. So you get good coverage from one sprinkler head to the next. One thing that I didn't mention about these pop-up rotary nozzles is that while this lawn was initially on 2 valves in order to make up enough volume and pressure for the entire lawn, because these nozzles require such low GPM, I can actually irrigate this entire lawn on just 1 valve. Well, that's it. I'm sure I wasn't able to answer all of your irrigation questions in these videos, so feel free to comment below with any other questions you have, and I hope in the very least I was able to inspire you to continually evaluate your irrigation system and always work towards making it as effective and efficient as possible.